Welcome, everyone. My name is Andrea Yeager, and it is exciting to introduce our little starlight guest, the fascinating Alice Walker. Alice Walker is the Pulitzer Prize winning author of The Color Purple. She's an icon, humanitarian, activist, truth teller, brave, and remarkable, selling over 15 million books, translated in over 24 languages. Alice has spent a lifetime devoted to sharing her energy, generous spirit, leadership, talent, treasures, time, awareness, and listening abilities. My intention of this, a conversation with Alice Walker, is for everyone to connect and receive, you, Alice, especially included, as we share and listen to the full of wonder young girl you still are and the wise woman you have become. With that in mind, the evolving peace, joy, and wounds you have experienced while allowing the world to know you, and the wisdom in which you travel with in the universe, may we welcome them all. Alice Walker, thank you for this special honor. How are you?
I'm really very well, actually. Little problems with things I shouldn't eat, but other than that, I'm good.
That's awesome. Well, clearing the energy for your visit and conversation has been ongoing for some time to provide the highest and best opportunity for everyone and seeds to be planted. Meditation is an important clearing of the mind for you. How does meditation make you feel?
Spacious. Because, life can kind of crowd in on you, and you need to have a tool that helps you push it back a bit, and sometimes a good bit. So I love the spaciousness that meditation assures if you practice, long enough.
Well, another thing that's very important to you is solitude. In connecting with community, a circle of friends, faith, and respective solitude, they all seem to be equally vital, one illuminating the other. When I was a child, it seemed strange to me that hardened criminals were given solitude as the punishment. And so you being a master of living in the present, what is your formula in achieving an enlightened balance in solitude and with others?
It's very interesting. I used to think that if I ended up in prison, I'm not gone yet, but I would spend my time meditating. And that solitude for me wouldn't be such a hardship. What would be a hardship would be having noise, either people chattering or, playing their various gadgets. That would be very hard. But solitude is refreshing for me. Many people, I don't know, I think many people don't give themselves enough time to feel the benefits of being solitary. After all, you're still surrounded by everything. It's not as if you've just gone off into space and there's nothing. It's a time when you can actually appreciate that you're not alone. You're alone and you're not alone. I yesterday, for instance, I decided, and the last week actually, I wanted to lie on the ground under banana trees and basically, watch what the sun does as it goes through those leaves as it passes during the day. And honestly, I was just totally happy doing that. Because what I love more than anything, I think, maybe, is wonder. And so you cannot live in this world, I think, unless you just do this to yourself, without being constantly nourished by wonder. And that happens almost anywhere you are, if you can be awake to it.
Now, could you explain a little bit of the difference? Because there is one between solitude and silence. Someone can be alone, which they might think is solitude, but can you just share how the silence part is important for that?
Well, I actually love silence. Although 2 days ago, I discovered that all my old music from 30 years ago has somehow morphed to my laptop. And there it was, all this great old music. B.B. King, blues, sacred music, Hawaiian music, which I like a lot. And so, I think that there are times when we naturally want the sound of our music, the music that we love, But for a lot of the time, I really don't want to hear it. I would rather hear, see, there's a bird out there. I would rather hear that little bird chirping.
For 38 years at Little Star Foundation, we've encouraged it as possible to live full, regardless of challenges. Being whole is part of that, a possibility for everyone, even while experiencing tremendous loss. As a child, you lost sight in your eye from an accident, and yet a knowingness continued for you almost with a sixth sense sight. Your love of creating and writing passionately continued even after your eye accident. Confidence can be impacted due to a physical challenge, any challenge, resulting in transformational positive and negative effects for a young child and person of any age. Would you share what your process was in finding your place and peace after your disfiguring childhood accident took the sight in one of your eyes?
Well, it helped a lot to have the disfigurement improved. I mean, to make my eye look better. I mean, I think this is very important for children and for anyone that we as adults hear their need to look normal it's a great challenge to feel that you are not, quote, normal. So that's why I'm so drawn to children in war who are often disfigured by war. They lose their hands, they lose their feet, they lose, their parts of their everything. And I think part of our job as adults is to help them regain some sense of wholeness. And also to stand against whatever is disfiguring them, like war. And that is one of the roots of my dedication to being anti-war. I see that it leaves these mangled children, I mean, adults too, but especially children. And then what do we imagine they're going to do with that suffering? And having suffered myself, I know what a deep, deep hole you can fall into just from your feelings of, not being whole yourself.
Now, there's a wonderful story that it's about your mother giving you a sewing machine, typewriter, and suitcase when you went off to college. It's extraordinary. She made so few dollars. She only made $17 a week, yet her compassion and faith in you was unwavering. She believed in you and how you would be an important messenger to the world. What was in your mom and you that made it possible for that opportunity? And how can others tap into ancestral support for their hardworking passions to gain life?
Well, that's a long question, but it makes me think about how my mother basically knew I needed to escape. And she was trying to help me with my getaway. So to help a daughter like me, I had been valedictorian of my class. I was voted most popular, and I was crowned queen of my high school class when I left. And so she saw there was a reason to basically help me get farther than our little town, which when my older sister, was leaving high school, there was she left grammar school. There was no high school. So my mother was trying to the best of her ability to aid me in escaping a situation where all of the light that my classmates saw and my teachers saw, all of that light, she wanted to protect that. And so she with her $17 a week, and then there was such a thing as layaway. I don't know if people do that now, but you would lay away things, and that meant you'd buy them, but you couldn't take them out of the store. But every week you put $1 down, and you do that forever. And then at some point, you would have paid the full amount. And I imagine that's what she did to buy that suitcase and that sewing machine.
So your words, create the life that suits you. Adriana left her home and family on her own internationally to attend a U.S. college scholarship in Alabama with very few dollars in her pocket. She had to learn English from scratch while attending college in the U.S. Gifted in tennis, however, her love of being an artist was never accepted or encouraged. The sports scholarship she was on didn't approve her interest in the arts, as those classes cost more. She continues to evolve in different creative mediums and has provided art therapy programs for Little Star for free in hospitals, schools, and orphanages, including blind students. Adriana, how would you like to join this conversation with Alice?
Hi, Alice.
Hi. Hi.
This is an incredible honor to share this time with you. Thank you for being with us. Your presence is so very vast and resonates with peace and healing and pure awareness. You have been and continue to be a true blessing to us and the world. I am truly humbled and grateful. I'm so excited. Once you were asked, what advice would you give to artists who are in search of their creative gifts? You said this planet is meant for joy and our purpose is to find it. How do you keep finding yours, and in what ways other than your incredible gift of writing?
Oh, hi. I'm so happy to see
Hello.
you. I'm glad we're here together.
Thank you
on
for
this.
being with us. A true honor.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm very curious about how I truly feel about things. I'm not someone who easily masks my feelings. I'd rather just walk out of the room. It's important to me to be true to myself, first of all. At the same time, honoring ancestors who left this fiber, this strength in me. And I don't know. I mean, I think, just being alive to what's here, and there's so much that's here, and also trying very hard not to lie about it. I mean, part of our problem as a world is that people just lie. I mean, they are just, they just lie. They it's almost funny, that people, especially in government, and in world leadership and all of that. I mean, they think nothing of lying to us, while they basically take all of our money, and use it for things that we'd never dream of using it for. Mm-hmm. So truth matters.
To be true to yourself. Mm-hmm. Okay. Alice, in one of your novels, and many other ones actually too, portray some of the challenges between fathers and daughters, and when they are going through different stages of life. What advice would you give to women and their fathers who have gone through similar circumstances, and how can they heal these challenged relationships? I
think fathers, in a way, become afraid of their daughters when they mature. Mm-hmm. It's almost as if the missing link, which is some kind of ceremony that we need for that, has vanished from, modern life. Although in Mexico, where I am, they still have a ceremony, that lets you bring out your daughter. For some reason, I'm not remembering what it's called. But I've always liked that there has to be a recognition that she is no longer, the child that you love. Now she is becoming the young woman that you can also love, and you can also cherish and protect to the best of your ability. But acknowledge that she's a different being. She has grown up. So we lack a lot in our culture, in the United States anyway, because we have left the young people bereft of traditions that would help them understand that they have left one part of life, like childhood, and now they're in another part where they have different responsibilities. Mm-hmm.
So to heal these relationships together with the daughters and fathers would be, I guess, the acceptance of father and of their daughters being a different being as they grow up. Okay.
Well, I think what we could start with is asking the fathers to just be quiet while the daughter is saying that she has grown up. That would help so much, because many fathers can't bear it. They feel very, threatened. They feel frightened. And often they're frightened for her, because they know what is out there. But at the same time, I think it's really important to let her speak to you, speak directly to you as the father, and it's your responsibility, I feel, to hear her out so that she can feel supported. Even if she doesn't understand, your fear, because that's probably what it is. You're afraid. Your little girl is growing up. You know what's out there, all those terrible men, and you're afraid. And have that discussion. Daughter, I'm afraid for you. I know what it's like out there. And you are so dear. You're so precious. It will break my heart if anything terrible happened to you. That's what's really going on underneath.
If you were able to start this life over again, Would you change anything? And if yes, what would it be?
I would make it easier for my parents. I would make, I would give them proper housing. I would give them running water. I would give them electricity. I would give them, good roofs that didn't leak. I mean, I would start over way before, I made my entrance. And I would do the same thing for my grandparents. I would give them, a different kind of life. And therefore, I would have a different life because I would come into a situation where there was, ease. People need ease. They need to feel that they must, that they're not always tight from some kind of worry and stress. And it's sad that we've lost that feeling of, I remember when I was growing up, one of the things I most loved was going down the road, dirt road anywhere, and there were other people on the road going here and there. And some of them would be singing. It was just such a gift. And actually, that's one of the reasons I was drawn to Mexico, because when I came here 20-something years ago, 30 years ago, I could actually still occasionally hear people singing for no reason, but just singing. And it just makes all the difference in the world.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
You've said you write because it speaks to your soul and that writing flows for you. The connection is there and you never had writer's block. Why do you think that is?
Because I don't push it. If it's not there, I do something else. I mean, really, it's not so precious that you have to harass it. It doesn't make any sense at all. Just do something else. And if it's for you, it will come back. And if it's not for you, it will go somewhere else, or it'll just, not be.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wonderful. So be patient and wait.
Yeah, learn to wait.
Mm-hmm. You have lived through many struggles and injustices and witnessed the suffering of all kinds. There is so much courage and fire inside you, which seem to keep pushing you to fight against it. Your fire is tame and gentle, and yet so powerful. Does life get to you more than it shows? And how do you keep it balanced?
Oh, yeah. I have suffered incredible depression,
mm-hmm.
Incredible sadness and mourning. I mean, even now, I find myself every day mourning
mm-hmm.
the casualties in Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't help it. Those young people, some of them 17. I mean, how can we bear it, really? And I really would like more people in the world to look at war from that perspective, that these are basically children.
Mm-hmm.
They've just, become, what were their dreams?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't not suffer. It's just that I also hold the beauty of this world, and I hold it dear, and I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. And I think of it, it's just such a gift. Every little thing is so magical. And I'm so glad I feel that way.
Mm-hmm. So to find, through the suffering, to find the joys that we were given on this earth. Mm-hmm.
I even love sand. I mean, lots of it. Because, for one thing, did you know you can make glass out of sand? I mean, it's just like, everything is endless.
Mm-hmm.
You start in one place and before you know it, you're somewhere else. And that's part of the magic. It's like, going to countries where they still make furniture out of like fronds, like tree
mm-hmm.
fronds, I mean, they make beautiful baskets and I love them. But just that sense of how life is so malleable and changeable and creative, and that some of us humans can match it. We can match it with our creativity. We can take the fronds and make something. We can take, a story and make something. And that's part of what is so lovely about being human, and writers, really, and poets. That it's the same kind of thing. It's like, instead of making a basket, which I would love to be able to do, I can make a poem and that will hold you.
Mhm.
I'll make you a poem, and you can climb over in the poem, and you can stay there for a day or two, and you'll be better.
Oh my goodness, thank you. I love it.
You'll
Oh
be
my
carried
gosh.
along in the basket.
Yes.
Uh,
Um, as a kid, I helped children in hospitals, schools, and street corners. I didn't come from their hardships, but wanted to help ease their pain. I'm on my 38th foundation year helping suffering children. Adriana has been working with kids for over a decade. We both train as professional athletes, and with our little star work, we do our best and understand your saying of, it is never about how easy it is to do, it is about doing it. Do you also feel it's about being called, a meant to be calling? If so, what does hearing a calling feel and sound like to you?
well, I kind of go back to this grandmother who was murdered, and I mean, that's just one of the roots, though, but it's a good example that when you have someone close to you, I mean, I never, of course, knew her. She died long before I was thought about. But there is a thread to, some kinds of disaster in your family or in the community or in the world. And that's the thread that draws you to part of what you need to do. And her murder led me to see what was happening to lots of women on the planet still today, who are, murdered, discarded, treated terribly, with people failing to understand or care. So this is part of what can happen, if you follow this thing inside that just says, well, what happened there? And who was she? And who was he? And what was going on? And that's what writers do,
Okay. You also mentioned know your light and keep your light. Could you expand on that for people who struggle finding and keeping their light? Your path has had many challenges, yet you continue creating, finding, keeping, and sharing your light.
That's a wonderful question. I never think of it quite that way, I guess. But again, I, refer us back to the universe. I mean, its light is not going anywhere. Even if we mess up Earth, we'll just be one more burned out star, and we'll still keep shining, they tell us, So I would say that I'm just like anything else here. I'm just being myself. And part of that work, though, is to not let other people and other situations and other causes and other crazinesses obscure your light, dim your light, confuse you so badly that you start thinking, well, my light doesn't matter. Their light doesn't either. So let's have a war.
That's a very interesting way to put that. Thank you. And so now we're on to grace and gratitude. Grace can be received and sent in different forms. Same for gratitude. It can be gentle, booming, soothing, energized, whatever one makes of it. Journaling can be an invitation to and for grace and gratitude. How important is journaling to you? And is it a daily meditative or spiritual exercise for you?
Well, for about 30 years or more, it was pretty daily, not quite daily, because other things, but often, a lot often. And it really helped me keep on track with my life and my feelings. And also what happened if I ate too much chocolate. There's the mundane help that one gets from journaling, which is it's a mirror. You get to see yourself, daily or weekly, and how you're, trying to follow your correct, right course, and often falling off. Well, why? What happened? And so you learn to see what happened. And if you can correct that, or if you cannot correct it, space it out like the chocolate. Okay. Not this month, but next month.
Okay. Now, Karen, I've known Karen since she was a child with cancer. She has a nurturing spirit, caring heart, and appreciative of the littlest of generosities. A wonderful connection you two have in common, Karen will explain.
Hi, Alice. It's an honor to meet you.
Well, the same color shirt.
Yeah.
Hi, Karen.
So Andrea was telling me that you're in Jalisco.
Yes.
I actually was born in Guadalajara, Jalisco.
Aw.
Yeah. It is a beautiful place. I think I used to visit often when I was in high school. Not anymore. My grandparents passed away, and only my sister and my niece live there. But they usually come and visit instead. But how did you come across Jalisco first? Why Jalisco?
Well, I didn't know it was Jalisco, really. I mean, I was just trying to find a place to write a novel because I had dreamed that I needed to be, this is a short version. I had dreamed I needed to be in the land where people made a certain kind of feathered cloak. Mm-hmm. And Mexico was the only place I could think of. Now, later on, when I went to Aotearoa, I found they also made the feather cloaks, but I didn't know that. So anyway, so I came to Mexico, went to Vallarta first, rented a house, got ready to work, and dogs barked the whole night. This was before Mexico, tried to do something with the dogs. So then my partner and I got in the car and we just started driving, and we ended up literally right where I am now.
Wow.
and I bought the house, it was compressed kind of, but I bought the house of the people who, were here and were leaving. And they left most of their stuff, not my stuff, but, some stuff they left. I plugged in my computer. No, actually, my typewriter didn't have a computer. And I started writing The Temple of My Familiar, which was one of my longest books. And that's how I got to where you were born. Did you say you were born here? Born in Jalisco?
Yeah, Guadalajara, Jalisco, yeah.
I was coming to where you were born.
That's amazing. The weather there is really nice too, I heard.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
Right?
Oh.
So in one of your interviews, you mentioned that you were a sophomore in college when you wrote your first book of poems called Once. Mm-hmm. I believe that's how your career as a writer took off. However, I was curious, was that your only career ambition? Sometimes, when we're young, we want to be doctors or teachers, etc. But sometimes life can take us in another path, career path. I know when I was a teen, I wanted to be a bank teller. I don't know why, but bank teller was my dream job. So at the age of 27, I became a bank teller, but realized soon after that, no, that's definitely not my dream job at all. So my question is, did you have other career ambitions when you were a child, or did you always know that being a writer was what you wanted to be?
No, I wanted to be a doctor.
Oh.
And I wanted to be a scientist. And I wanted to be, but especially those two. But there was no way I could do that. There was, the schools were terrible. My sister was at home. There was no school for high school Black children. And then when I was growing up, there was, so the opportunity to be a teacher, was pretty good. If I did all my work and went on to college, but there again, my parents knew nothing about college. They hardly knew anything about high school. In fact, they never came to, a parent-teacher meeting at my high school because it was just completely foreign to them. And they were, they were afraid. They had, they were, I wish I could just take them in my arms right this moment and kiss them and tell them, you did great. But it was just such a different world than the one that they knew. He had gone to 5th grade. She had gone, I think, to 4th grade. And they were just like peasants all over the planet, who really don't have an opportunity. So, her giving me the sewing machine and the typewriter and the suitcase, I think was high intelligence on her part, my mother. I think she really got it, that in order for me not to repeat her life, I had to get out of there and I had to be able to make my own way. And, they knew nothing about writing. I mean, they loved to read, but they had no idea, in a way, how writing happened. I mean, we would scavenge, my parents scavenged for books, and we were all taught and love stories. But I don't think they had a clue, really, about, how you do it. They were never able, for instance, to come to my college. They couldn't afford the fare. And they had no idea where I was. I mean, it was like when I went to college, it was as if I disappeared into, the clouds. I mean, isn't that amazing?
That is amazing. Like now that you tell it, yes, it is amazing.
And they're not alone. I mean, poor parents all over the planet to this moment, send their bright children off, praying that they're going to survive, praying that they can, offer something, or even just live.
Well, thank you for sharing. As you know, I am a childhood leukemia survivor. And through my experience with leukemia, I was able to meet many amazing doctors and nurses. And this also led to meeting Andrea through Little Star Foundation. Now I get to give back by being an ambassador at Little Star, helping kids with cancer. So I know that through your life, you have met many amazing people, including Martin Luther King Jr., who made history by making a difference. Do you wake up every morning knowing you can make a difference?
Well, no, I wake up every morning really amazed that I'm awake. No, it's so much more mundane than that. I wake up in the morning thinking, my God, I'm awake. And look at here, what do we have? Raining, or sunny, or, my dog, how is my dog doing? No, I in a way, there's a saying about, people living very close to the earth. In some ways, it's like, I'm like that. I'm living very close to just basically what is, around me. It's true. I have traveled a lot and all of that. But even when I'm somewhere else, I'm so connected to the wonder of wherever I am. It's so refreshing. If you can live like that, a lot of the stress and pain is just, it's there, but it's just part of what is there. And the rest is just like, wow, all of this.
That's wonderful. If you could meet anyone, who would it be and why?
Would they have to be alive?
No, but just anyone in general.
I would like to meet Che. I would like to meet Che Guevara. I would really like to sit down and share a pipe.
Oh my
gosh! But there are several people, who come to mind. And some of them, I think John Lennon, I would like to have a chat with. I like,
I know. When we go back to that question, and I mean, there's so many people have made a difference and are just amazing, and it's just really hard to decide, I bet.
Great.
So I know in your house in Berkeley, you have a beautiful garden that seems to be your sanctuary. Do you miss your garden when you travel? And if so, do you seek out beautiful places that remind you of your garden, or that, give you that vibe of your garden?
Right now I have a garden here. I'm in Mexico.
Oh, nice.
And my garden is beautiful. It's kind of wilting a little bit now, but I planted zinnias because they're very simple. They're very easy. You just basically put the seeds there and you water them. You put maybe some good compost, and they just go crazy. They have these wonderful blooms, very bright. Let me just show you a bloom.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
This is so great.
This is the flower that
I love it. Oh my goodness.
It's so beautiful.
See that? Isn't that beautiful?
Yes.
It is.
And it's so easy. And I like them because they're like the kind of flower you draw when you're a child. I don't know if you did flowers when you were
It's
little,
true.
but this is the child's flower, and it's just
Oh my goodness,
precious.
beautiful.
Wow, they are very pretty.
Oh my gosh.
Being an elder to countless children worldwide appears naturally for you. No one person can help everyone, nor are they called to. Sometimes a yes is the assigned catalyst. Same for a no heard can be best for another's growth. When I'm with students, program participants, patients, anyone interested, I enjoy sharing having a sense of wonderment is important. When a sense of wonderment is activated within and treasured, joy will always find a home, immune to the times knocked down. A sense of wonderment recognizes the miraculous, has a kinship to gratitude, and rising up continues. Was your sense of wonderment a born gift, or did you develop it along the way?
Well, I think I had it at birth and after that, because I used to win all the prizes in my church because because what do they call it? They had baby contests, because they had to raise money our church was burned down, so they had to raise money to rebuild it, So, I was always such a sweet child. And I charmed the pants off of everybody. And they would always, in this contest about the sweetest, cutest baby, I always won. So there. And so that has just, helped me until I, had this terrible situation when I was shot. And then that changed that bright child to someone who was, always looking down, always, trying to hide and always being, just totally sad, basically.
From your eye when you were
yes.
shot in the eye with the BB gun. Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. But it that's what we all know here, all of us. We know that when children are injured, they go into a different universe. Mm-hmm. They do. But with time and lots of care and love and connecting with how here's a really important thing to realize. You will start to see that in nature there is also a lot of wounding, and especially now you can really see it. And you have to begin to understand what is still beautiful, what is still whole, even in the most ravaged places. And I'm thinking now of mountaintop removal, which I think is just how humans let that happen is beyond me. But you have these scarred, horrible looking places where they just destroyed mountains. But somehow, out of our love of what is, what was there, what the foundation of what was there, is, we have to see what is beautiful there, which is really hard. But if you work at it, it's almost like developing a solidarity with what is injured. And the solidarity is what makes it beautiful, because no matter how battered and destroyed it is, you're there beside it. You're witnessing and you're loving it no matter what. And that is what the beauty is. That conjures the beauty of it.
Absolutely. So the world is full of kind people. There are also some people that choose cruelty as a hobby, inflicting harm and attacking as a pattern, and comfort in receiving and taking rather than giving in gratitude. It may just be a matter for the very next person they meet to be the one called to help awaken their heart. Could you share for audiences how you recognize when it is your turn? Also share to us as well. So for you, like for when someone meets someone, that could be the very next person. And for you share it to audiences all the time. How do you know when it's your time? How do you recognize when it's your time to make a difference? You're quite adept at standing up, but you're also adept at getting back up. So how do you know?
I'm just led by love, and I don't know. I mean, it's you just feel ignited sometimes in your heart by something that it's like you and that horse, that you rescued.
Matisse.
You can look at that horse, and you didn't want her to have a life of racing, which would have just killed so much of her beauty and, her strength and her soul. and so that's what you do. You find, the places where you can help, maybe not rescue a whole horse, but do what you can do. I've actually found so much joy in strange places. Like, I don't know, one time we were at a demonstration and there was a mother from El Salvador with 3 children, and we were picketing, and I thought we'd picket and go home and that would be it. We ended up bringing all of them home with us, and then I was trying to write, while these 3 children and their mother, who didn't speak any English, were, doing whatever they were doing. But the joy of that was that we fell in love with the baby, all of us, my daughter and my partner. I mean, so eventually, we were able to, put one child in one kind of school and the mother into some kind of school and a little apartment, and the other child, I forget. But anyway, just part of meeting life, with whatever you can offer, is really part of the answer. It has to be, otherwise we're just spinning people off into nothingness, into I can't even say the wilderness, because we pretty much killed the wilderness. But, it's like hearing about all these children now who come up from places that our country has destroyed, and what kind of work they're doing now. They're basically being enslaved to do horrible, jobs that they're too little to do. So a lot of them are not making it at all. They're dying. But this awareness of that, that we develop, partly because we know what it feels like. There was an expression in the South called, being hacked. Now, I think, they use it now with computers, but in the South, it meant that you were hacked, like chopped down. And so they would often say to a person who could no longer, speak and express, but was sort of stuttering his or her pain, that they'd been hacked, So we don't want more of that. We want to have less hacking and more supporting.
Okay, which brings me to the symbolic importance of coconuts. For audience members unfamiliar with this topic, and for those tired of experiencing abuse of power from anyone, uncertain if their voice has value, Alice, would you share your thoughts on the symbolism of coconuts with the pretext from one of your great book titles, We Are the Ones We Are Waiting For, as a form of how to share one's voice when they are hurting or seeing another being harmed?
What does the coconut have to do with it?
Okay, so the coconut, when it's with your, do you remember with your mom and
people?
Mom. Yeah.
Oh, well, that story about how she
grabbed the well, we're doing it symbolic, not for people to go buy coconuts and then start knocking.
Right. No, well, I don't. Someone was talking about how women have to really stand up for themselves, and I was telling the story about how I learned that from my mother, because my father, who was not really a violent person, but he had been pissed off by the landlord or the overlord or the plantation owner or whatever, but how that happens. So they come back and they want to take it out on their wife. But he picked the wrong wife because she was sitting there sewing, trying to make clothing for the winter for us. And he was coming in, going to try to abuse her because he had been abused. And he, starting out terrible. And she just kept sewing. She had a pedal sewing machine, so her movement was like this. And my aunt in Florida had sent a whole sack of coconuts. And so, he raised his hand, kind of, and she never stopped sewing. She just reached and got a coconut and let him have it. So I always say to women, who heard this story, to remember it. And if you're ever attacked or somebody's ever even thinking about attacking you, you reach for that coconut, because it's important that you defend what you love. And if you love yourself, it's worth defending.
Very important point. Before we go to the next topic of conversation are you okay to go to a couple more topics
Oh,
of
yeah,
conversation?
sure.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so before that, I want to just share an appreciation moment. It's a little unorthodox to do this midway through a historical conversation with a legend, but there are people who never ask for a thank you, but they deserve one because of their support. Because of their support, myself and Little Star has made it this far. And so I just want to thank the one person who showed up nearly 40 years ago when I needed a VP from my Children's Cancer Foundation.
Oh, Andrea.
And the person showed up. So every child helped has been because that person stepped up. Otherwise, the foundation would have never existed and grown as it has been to help children in hospitals, schools, orphanages, shelters, and grassroots communities. So forever, thank you. The person knows how important today is to visit with you too. And so every day when it's like, did you learn something new? I go, yeah, well, I knew that one 30 years ago or 40 years ago, but it's fun to, So anyway, I just want to say thank you to that person. I also wanted to thank my sister, Susie, she's a Stanford graduate and a physician assistant, and she's been choosing for decades to improve the healthcare for Native Americans, and Indigenous groups were gravely harmed. And it's just really cool what she does. She doesn't do it for a thank you. None of us here ever do anything for a thank you, but I wanted to thank her for that. And then to each person that has cared about Little Star Foundation, wants to care about us and the Little Star podcast, the Little Star Light podcast, listeners, of course, included, you are appreciated and special. Some of you have known me since I'm 10 years old, and you help. Others, every one of you, for whatever reason, divine intervention occurred, arriving with your kindness, support, and friendship. Thank you. To Rhea, all the kids and friends listening and watching from the stars, we remember you and you remain in our hearts. And for children and anyone, anywhere having a tough time, your bravery is admirable. May love and peace find you, and may Little Star Light be a circle of friendship and light for you. To Daphne, Paul, Esther, Cindy, Kevin, Bill, Ted, Erwin, Linda, and Dr. Susan, hugs for sure. Karen and Adriana, the sacred conversation we will forever remember. May this priceless conversation with Alice Walker reach souls, unite spirits for good, inspire minds, and heal hearts globally. I'd love to mention every person I'm grateful for, but it's time to get back to this cherished conversation with the one and only Alice Walker. So last appreciation part to Joan. Thank you for connecting us here today. You are golden. To nature, plants, animals, the universe, and God, gratitude eternally. You are doing all you can to help humanity. May our frequency rise for us to do the same for you. So thank you, Alice, for allowing me that part. Have you ever had a speech or event where you felt you left something unsaid and was like, oh, I got to remember that for next time?
I love it that you did it.
Thanks. I actually asked nature and the animals today to say, hey, rise up, join in on this. So that's why when the bird came, I thought for sure it was like a special one you knew that was visiting. So that's how I asked about that. Okay, so to the next question. It was spoken about earlier, you being on fire when you encounter injustice, yet you remain Jedi-like, Dalai Lama cool. That is a superpower. Several decades ago, I met someone who spent time with Mother Teresa and the Dalai Lama too. She told me this interesting story about Mother Teresa. She said, absolutely, Mother Teresa got things done. It was far different, though, than how people think. You know how Jesus turned over a table? She asked me. Without waiting for my reply, she continued, Mother Teresa turned over tables. She raised her voice and got in people's faces. People thought she was frail. She busted on people, no matter who they were, if they caused harm, with no fear, while declaring, never mess with me during my humanitarian work, or you are going to have to deal with God and me. And God's nicer. My friend finished the story with, had the world known that side of Mother Teresa, a movement would have started of people unapologetic for roaring while helping individuals and communities being harmed. I laughed when I heard that story, and I thought, how cool. And the other part of that is, you've been doing that your whole life. You've been standing up. You've been being that. We think of Mother Teresa in a certain way, and you've been living every day of what you can do as that. And so that's kind of a special tribute to you, saying, Alice Walker is here, everyone. Let's listen. let's give her a hug and give love. And so I just wanted to ask you, how that is for you to know. I mean, you must know there's a responsibility because you've taken that on and you continue doing that.
A responsibility for what?
To share and to continue standing up. Like you could have just written The Color Purple and sat down and said, I'm going to stay. I'm good now. I'm good now. But you didn't. You keep standing up and keep sharing and allowing your wisdom to flow and connect. Whether people agree with you or not, you keep doing that. And that takes a lot of courage. It's not just that one moment. Some people do that one brave moment and then they're like, okay, I'm good. I got a little harmed or wounded. I'm good. You don't. You keep rising, and it's truly remarkable.
Well, I'm just this way, I don't think of it as being all that different, I'm just this way. I keep, I have breath, I have life, I have what I see in the world. I have a lot of love for so much. And in fact, I've been thinking a lot about love, not in the way that, I used to, and many people think of it, but I think I wrote a poem somewhere that says, you have to say, I love you at least 5 times a day. And it's like a kind of medicine, to do it that way, but you have to mean it. And I really believe this, so this is what I'm offering today, that if you can find in your heart that you can say, I love you to whatever, you can say it to the moon, you can say it to these zinnias, you can say it to, your mother or whatever. But if you say it and you really feel it, and if we could spread this around the planet, we could transform the planet, because there's a medicine in the vibe of love. Love is a vibration, and there's a medicine in that is aroused, I think, if you live a life where you can actually say this and mean it 5 times, at least 5 times. You can say it more times, but 5 times a day at least. It's like taking any other medicine that you take, and you have to do that kind of, a number of times on schedule. But that I really feel deeply is what can keep us sane, happier, more connected to what the wonder is that we inhabit here. I mean, when you think about how ignorant we are of where we actually are, I mean, we are so completely, so if I see where we are is just a wonder, that's an accurate description. I mean, it is. And I think cherishing that is what activates the heart to expand and to include more of life, people included.
That's a beautiful way of putting it. The next section I had for you was about, it was sunshine, nature, ancestors, the stars, moon, friendship, animals, and a whole lot more are remarkable, yet and they have quite the vibration and consciousness, and yet so often are taken for granted. Do you feel their consciousness? And if so, what does that feel like for you? Which you just answered. And then my question after that was for you, what kind of conversations do you have with them? Like when you reach them and it's a higher sense of vibration, whether it's in meditation or conversation, do you feel connected with them as like we're all together as one? Do you feel that?
It's always basically thank you. It's always just such gratitude. And I want that experience for everyone. I mean, I think, well, why be on the planet if you can't have that? If you can't have that experience, that you get from wonder. We're back again to wonder. I mean, I have to laugh sometimes when I think my parents named me Alice, which means truth, actually, in Greek, Old Greek. But it's also, Alice in Wonderland, mm-hmm. and I think, well, yeah, that's me. I can't fear death, for instance, because I just know that. I will transition out of here, this consciousness, but I can't imagine that would just be all there is to it, and especially when you see that in nature, everything is always transitioning, always transforming. So that if you, all of the compost that I have, that comes from all kinds of dead things, I put it on my flowers and on my grass, and there it is again. I mean, whatever was whatever was alive before is suddenly alive again. I mean, it's it's a wonderful way of living in this kind of planet. It's extraordinary.
Okay, so it might be the same. I mean, it probably will be a wonderment answer on this as well. And I could skip this, but I still think it's important because so often people don't quite, on the initial take, understand your truth. It takes them sometimes a little bit. A European philosopher once said, all truth passes through 3 stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. Third, it is accepted as self-evident. How do you ready yourself, if you even do, for what is to come when you share truth and society awareness is lacking on the truths you shared? Like you have to wait for them in a sense. How do you just be in nature? Or if you're at an event and everyone's like, oh, I don't like that, Alice. How are you with that?
I let them have their experience of here. I mean, maybe they have a different experience of being here. I'm sharing what I have. It's really that simple. I'm not trying to proselytize. If you don't feel it, you don't feel it. I mean, I do, and I'm just happy I do.
And that's what's so cool about you is you share, and people have the right to take it. They can agree, they can not agree, but you have a calling to share it, and they have maybe their calling to how they respond, but you continue doing it, which is so cool. This one part, I was injured in tennis. I walked out of this huge stadium, and after, this famous reporter walked up to me and said, "You will never amount to anything ever again if you don't get back on a tennis court." And I was 19 years old and surprised. I wasn't looking for compassion or a milkshake, having just defaulted. It was in the middle of my match. My shoulder popped, and I figured I just heard him wrong and said, "Excuse me." Same statement. I felt sorry for what he was missing in life by his living in a state of being unaware. Several decades later, that same reporter, I think he read somewhere that Nelson Mandela came to visit and thank me for my humanitarian work, helping children, and how I gave all my pro tennis earnings to help children with cancer and others in need. The reporter found me and apologized. I thought that took courage for him to admit he was wrong. I wasn't waiting for his apology. I didn't need it, but I did appreciate his change of heart. Do people find you days, years, or decades later and apologize for never believing a truth you shared, or say sorry for attacking you cruelly on a truth you made? Has that ever happened to you?
Yes, they do. And they often say, I just didn't understand. And it took me time. And I understand that. And I just basically hug them and feel really happy for them. Because, why be stuck? Why be stuck and angry? Because a lot of my critics, are not only stuck, but they're mad. And I feel for them because, I know what that feels like. When you're feeling like you finally got a grasp of something, and then here comes this woman telling you some weird stuff, about love and wonder and, that Earth is fantastic and, all of that, and that love, real love is never wrong. Love is not wrong. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy for them. They've graduated.
You've also said never offer your heart to someone who eats hearts. I laugh at that because it's so simple and it's so profound and it's so you. Yet, how many people remember that when leaping in? Do you want to take a deep dive on this one? Like, remember that, people, remember that.
Well, no. You go ahead and take the deep dive. That's what life is. I mean, but just remember, you don't have to kill yourself doing it. You don't have to die after it. It's just a deep dive. Mm-hmm. And when you dive deep, sometimes your head hits the bottom. Yeah. In other words, love can be dangerous also. And trust all of it can be dangerous. It can take you very far down. But do you want to miss it? No.
We're on the last part here, and it's about your book of poems, Once. I bought your book of poems once when I was 16 years old. I was on the professional tennis circuit. And then after that, that was in a bookstore. And then it was about 20 years after that, we crossed paths at an LA book festival. We each had books we wrote. We were signing for audiences. I ran across the promenade from my little book booth to hear you speak at a large auditorium, delighting on that opportunity, taking people in my line with me, saying, come on, this will be far better. Another time on a work trip, I passed a quaint bookshop, and it was like a bookshop coffee shop. And there was a poster, and it said, Alice Walker is coming for a reading in 4 hours. So I waited for those 4 hours, went in and took a chair, and was so excited. And those times don't make an eternity, but I have seen you in person, and I followed your career since I was 16 years old, and then born in 65, so over 40 years now. How you approach participating in this conversation, it was with complete joy, rather than another thing you have to do. We've exchanged emails recently too, and just you still represent something that's rare. When I reflect upon all that, I notice a rarity most don't always come across in people. You stay true to yourself always. I love how you have an awareness of who you are and being comfortable within being you. A truth one can count on with you. A truth that's authentic. It can be bumpy as a messenger, brutal. You continue regardless. Mm-hmm. You have been and are misunderstood, and you still let that be for others to awaken. Alice Walker is going to be Alice Walker, whether someone approves, applauds, agrees with, or appreciates. It's so incredibly refreshing. Do you recognize the rarity in that?
Again, I just feel like I'm like everything else here that's trying to be authentically what it is. I mean, I'm just this, and I can't really say that I wake up, trying to figure out how to do this or that. I'm already this or that, I'm already who I am. And also it helps to know that what I give to the culture is just an offering, it's just, so what I don't know if people, it's kind of a religious thing, but this is more spiritual. But the crux of the matter about offerings is that that's just what you offer. And it doesn't mean it has to be taken. It doesn't mean anything, but that is what is put there. So you may say, okay, this looks pretty good, I'll try it. Or you may just say, this is not for me, and, walk by or whatever. And this has happened, and people have also kicked it to the curb, but that's their, that's what they do. I know what I'm doing. I mean, I know my responsibility to life, not even to really individual people often, it is to life itself. I know what I'm supposed to be doing here because, obviously, look at, what life created. It created me in this way. And my appreciation is to share that with the collective.
Right. And so for me, there's a saint, Saint Catherine of Siena, who I've followed for a long time. And she has a saying where it's, the more I know, the less I know, which is what I feel. The more I think I learned, the more I know I have to learn. And she also has something that says, proclaim the truth and never be silent through fear, which I thought of when I was in South Africa for the first time when I was 13 years old. I went to play a junior and a pro tournament and tennis tournament, and I won both events. And at one of the trophy celebrations, when they allowed the public to take pictures and get autographs, only the white kids were allowed to come over to me. The black children weren't. I refused to sign an autograph or take a picture unless all the kids could be together with me. My parents weren't there with me because they couldn't afford the trip, and I felt adults that were around weren't so happy about my speaking up. Mm-hmm. It's one of the most treasured photos I have because I wouldn't do one unless all the kids were together and we all came together. And those kids I saw when I was playing my match, I saw them in the crowd. They had to sit in different sections. They had to use different bathrooms. And I saw the look when they saw these white kids come over, and I was like, this is just a picture. I mean, this is just, one moment, but if we can change one moment for someone, maybe that can make a difference. So I tried to explain this to my class when I went back home. And I explained, Black children and Black people, they have to use separate bathroom. It's way worse than what we're reading about in books. They don't get to go in the same cars. They don't get the same jobs our parents have. They're treated horribly. And I saw it. And no one seemed to care. They were more interested. I was on TV with my tournament results, and that surprised me. And it comes back to this whole thing in society where it starts with yourself. And you often say that you can't look at someone else and say, why aren't you doing that? It's like you have to be doing it. So for children of interracial marriages that struggle because other kids don't think they're Black enough or white enough, or Black families that, right now they're having very serious safety talks at a very young age for their children. And in general, for all families and individuals worldwide, it's a beautiful world, but it's also troubling. It has inhumane behavior and injustices that are real. You understand how it starts with each of us. And so is that something for you that, you shared a couple lines that were very profound, that's like, take this with you. Is there anything, because I will never understand what it's like for a child with cancer. I never had it, or any child in an orphanage or a hospital or school that's really, really suffering. And I will never understand what it's like for a young Black child who's scared. I just have seen them, and I've tried to do what I can, or any child of any race, religion, anything that's being hurt. You've been hurt. So could you just share, like, this is this last little part of, I have one more question though after, if that's okay, but could you share on this one?
Yeah, I just think that possibly, the damage that I see that white people have and white children have has been done to their ability to remember and their fear of memory. And this is something that needs to be really worked on, because unless you can hold in yourself and affirm, reality as a memory, it's a lobotomy of sorts. You can't be your full self. And that, I think, is part of the big problem in the United States, that people just refuse to remember the history, of our country, which means that people are running around just lacking any kind of internal compass about where they're going and what they're about.
Mm-hmm. I understand that. So where do you, like, someone's like, I want to do that. I really want to do that. But where do I start remembering? Do they go to the library? Where do they start remembering if they really want to? What would you share?
Okay, well, all this meditating that people are being encouraged to do, start there. Because you get there on your cushion and you say to yourself, I'm going to be real on this cushion. And it's not going to be about escapism. It's going to be about encountering what arises. And what arises, often what arises is what you don't know, and you wonder why you don't know certain things, why there are areas in your psyche that you're afraid to open the door to. So I would say that, it's easy. You just get a quiet corner somewhere, you sit on your cushion and you accept whatever knowledge, historical or otherwise, is trying to appear. Let it come to consciousness, but don't be ignorant. I think, it's sad to see my country, the United States, clinging to its ignorance. Ignorance is not a good raft on this river we're on. This is a treacherous river. It really would help if you would just, learn how to really swim, or, not need the raft, so I don't know. I mean, I just feel like, I know that Black people have a lot of issues and we are always, struggling and all of that. But I think the edge that we do have is an awareness of what we have done and what we have been through and what we haven't been able to do. And I would love to see that in the consciousness of white Americans. It's just often not there.
Okay, so we're really on the last one right now. Okay, so there may be a listener hearing about you for the first time, or like me, knowing you as part of life since remembered. And it seems fitting for completion of this conversation to read a few lines from one of your books, from your first book, a book of poems called Once. The poem, "So We've Come at Last to Freud." Several of the lines resonated for me at age 16, as when I read them back then, I felt you understood the world a little like I did, the only adult at that time I felt that did. They can do the same for others. Would that be okay with you, Alice? We didn't give you any of the questions ahead. You didn't know any of this ahead of time. I have it right here. I can read some of it. I know by heart, so I can read it. I don't know if you have it with you. Obviously, it would mean more if you read it, but I can read it myself if that's okay. Okay. I didn't want to, this is how we all, people who buy your books, this is how we come to it. We read them ourselves, but with you here, it's just a little,
but I don't have that book. I'm in Mexico.
I know. Okay.
California.
So here it is. So we've come at last to Freud. Do not hold my few years against me. In my life, childhood was a myth. So long ago, it seemed, even in the cradle. Don't label my love with slogans. My father can't be blamed for my affection or lack of it. Ask him. He won't understand you. Don't sit on holy stones as you, loving me and hating me, condemn. There's no need for that. I like to think that I, though young it's true, know what I'm doing, that I, once unhappy, am now quite sanely jubilant, and that neither you nor I can deny that no matter how sick the basis is of what we have, what we do have is good. Whether people agree with another or not, respect each other or not, love each other or not, we are all connected as one. For everyone listening, it is what Alice has shared many decades ago. The last line in the poem, what we do have is good. Let's plant some of those good seeds. Let's light the way for those good seeds to grow within us and for all we know and for all we don't know. Thank you, Alice Walker. Light and blessings to you, and may the universe bring us together again soon. And of course, this is your conversation, so you have the last words in this circle of light that we hope to shine for all. So thank you. This is forever memorable, so thank you. But you have the last words.
Oh, yes. Well, that poem, I had completely forgotten it. And I'm glad you read it, because actually it's a good poem for America. Our foundation is rotten. I mean, it is really bad. But we, in Mississippi, when I was in the movement and I married my husband illegally, I realized that what we had there as a movement was good. And even though the foundation of the country gave us no support, really. I mean, it was always about, killing the Indians and enslaving Black people and making poor white people indentured servants and all of that. But at the point of actually resisting our own disaster, we found goodness and we found peace and we found love. And so it was a shining time because of that.
Yeah, that's what's so fascinating. You recognize, you never point a finger at anybody ever. You look within yourself and you share yourself, and that's what you've done your whole life. And that's where I think, we all have our own life experiences, whether they take you around the world, like mine was with pro tennis or whatever someone's journey is. And that's such a perfect reminder for anyone. It doesn't matter where you've been born into or who you are. There is good. There is good in all of us, and never to point a finger at anyone, because it's like where you are within yourself. And that's why, with this Little Starlight podcast, we want to remember an elder isn't necessarily someone older than you. It's an elder is someone who's an elder that can help you with your wisdom along the way. And that's where it was interesting when we started this, putting together the conversation with you, because when I was talking to Karen, telling her about the time change and where you were and figuring it out, she goes, I was born there. Where she's, I didn't know that. I've known Karen since she's like 13 years old, and talk about a strange connection. And Adriana has, connections with you as well that I didn't know about her. And that's what is so interesting. If we all give ourselves a chance to know one another and listen to one another and know ourselves, we are so much more alike than not.
And an elder, as you said, is someone who cares. That's how you really know whether someone is an elder,
and tells you the truth. tells you the
Well,
truth.
yeah, well, they care enough to tell the truth.
Mhm.
Sometimes that's pretty hard.
Yeah. Sometimes history isn't easy to take,
Mhm.
but like you said, it should be known. And when it does come together, it's so different, and it can help, like I said, we really want to help touch hearts and souls and heal them. And you have been that for so many, and many that don't know you. So thank you so much. I know this, like I said, this will be cherished, forever. Hopefully this is just like chapter 1 and we get another one later in the year or next year, or, anytime.
Oh my God.
Thank you so much for what you all do. It's wonderful work. And thank you so much for being such a light.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Alice. Oh my goodness.
Thanks. Thank you. See, we'll let her. I'm just going to stay on until she goes off because it's too fun.
We should have brought our dogs on too,
I know. I was going to bring Charlie, but I thought, no, this is the first time. Maybe next time we can have
next time. I just tried to get Eddie, but I woke him from a nap and he didn't like it. So
Okay. We're going to hold on to it. Eddie and Charlie next time with all of us. Thanks again. Oh my gosh, was that so cool?
Yeah.
She's something, huh?
Yeah.
Pure wit. She's like a powerhouse. She's out of a different planet, that's for sure.
Yeah.